Hi guys, it's Mrs. Ulry. We're going to talk a little bit more about pressure. Specifically, we're going to talk about the units of pressure and how pressure is measured, and then how to convert between units in this video. So by the end of this video, we should be able to do the following things: explain how pressure is measured, and then convert between the units of pressure. So air pressure is the force exerted on objects by the particles of gas in the air. So if we take a look here, all of these little dots, they represent air particles, and they are all colliding with the surface of this balloon and exerting pressure. At sea level, meaning at ground level, so here at the ground, there's exactly 14.7 pounds of force per square inch pushing down on you. So for every square inch on your body, there's 14.7 pounds of force being pushed down on you by the gas particles in the air. However, if you go up in elevation from ground level, so Grand Rapids is about ground level or sea level, and let's say you were to climb up a mountain, Mount Everest, what happens is the gas particles in the air start to decrease. They spread out. So if you go way up in elevation, because there are fewer particles of gas, fewer particles of air, you're going to experience less pressure at higher altitudes because there's going to be less particles colliding with the surface and exerting a force on you. But way down here at sea level, on the ground, we have lots of force being pushed down upon us, 14.7 pounds of force. So how do we know this? How do we know that there are 14.7 pounds of force being pushed down on us by the atmosphere? How do we know how much pressure is being exerted by the air? So air pressure is measured using a device called a barometer. A barometer looks like this. We no longer use mercury barometers because we found out that mercury is toxic. But a mercury barometer has this pan of mercury. Mercury is a liquid metal at room temperature. So it's the only metal that is liquid at room temperature. And we have this pan of the mercury sitting out, and the air pressure pushes down on the mercury and forces the mercury up this tube. So when we have higher pressures, the mercury is going to rise higher. So if you see going from this air pressure to a higher air pressure, we can see that the mercury moves up the tube. If we decrease the air pressure, the mercury goes down the tube. And so this actually gives us one of our units of pressure, which is called millimeters of mercury. So quite literally, what you do is you measure from the base to the top of this mercury column, and the number of millimeters that the mercury has risen is equal to the pressure that the air is pushing down on the mercury in the pan. The greater the pressure, the higher the column. The lower the air pressure, the lower the column will be. And that results again in our unit called millimeters of mercury. So units of pressure, millimeters of mercury are not the only units of pressure. We have what are called atmospheres, millimeters of mercury, which is the same thing as something called torr. We also have what are called kilopascals, and we have PSI, which is pounds per square inch. So that 14.7 pounds per square inch, we can abbreviate that as 14.7 PSI. And so we have what are called standard pressures. So these would be the pressures that you would find at sea level at 0 degrees Celsius. And so those standard pressures are 1 atmosphere is equal to 760 millimeters of mercury, which is equal to 101.3 kilopascals. And that is also equal to 14.7 PSI, pounds per square inch. So all of these give us conversion factors that we can use to convert between units of pressure. So example 1, I have a balloon had a pressure of 780 millimeters of mercury, what is the number of pounds per square inch inside the balloon? So to do that, I'm going to start with my starting value, which is 780 millimeters of mercury. We're going to do our times in a line to set up our conversion ratio. I want to get rid of millimeters of mercury, so I'm going to put that on the bottom. And I want to know how many pounds per square inch, so I'm going to put PSI on top. Then I'm going to look at my conversion factor, and it says 760 millimeters of mercury is the same thing as 14.7 pounds per square inch. So 760 millimeters of mercury is equal to 14.7 pounds per square inch. I'm going to type this into my calculator as 780 times 14.7 divided by 760 millimeters of mercury. And that will give me 15.1 pounds per square inch. Okay, let's try another one. So example number 2, it says the pressure inside an oxygen tank is typically 2000 psi. What is the pressure in kilopascals? So my starting value is 2000 pounds per square inch. I'm going to do my ratio, so times in a line. I want to get rid of PSI, so that's going to go on the bottom. And I want to figure out how many kilopascals, so I'm going to put KPA on top. And I know that 14.7 pounds per square inch is the same thing as 101.3 kilopascals. I'm going to type this into my calculator as 2000 times 101.3 divided by 14.7, and I get 13,782 kilopascals. All right, guys, time for some practice.